Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmhand is the all-in-one software platform and virtual assistant built by and for independent farmers. Through a simple text or email to Farmhand, you can instantly offload admin tasks, automate your CSA, update your website, and sell more to your customers. With $0 startup fees or long-term commitments, farmers are reporting an average 6+ hours in time saving and 20% in sales growth each week. Learn more and take the quiz to see how much you can save by partnering with Farmhand at farmhand.partners/podcast. That is farmhand.partners/podcast. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with a special episode of the podcast this week. This past January, we had over 30 small farm and gardening experts join us for our online vegetable summit. I wanted to share one of our most popular sessions, which was with Ray Tyler, who is a farmer, author, and educator at Rose Creek Farms in Central Tennessee. Listen in on what he is most passionate about sharing with other small farmers. In this session of the Thriving Farmer Vegetable Summit, we'll be hearing from Ray Tyler, an inspiring farmer in the world of sustainable agriculture. As a dedicated family man, self-made farmer, and innovative educator, Ray brings his real-world experience to this session on balancing the good life on the farm with your family. Thank you for joining us, Ray.
Great to be here. All right, guys, this is a talk and topic that I'm really passionate about. And I wanted to really start this session with just a short kind of mission and why I got started in farming in the first place. I think it'll really lay the groundwork for why essentially I do what I do. And I think it'll help with your overall understanding of what this presentation will really be about. In 2009, I was working nights welding, and our daughter, Asha, she's our oldest one, she was 6 months old. And at this job, what I was really I really found myself exhausted with working and coming home being exhausted. And so I was going to work before my family was out of bed. I was coming home. I was exhausted. And I just found myself really had a big lack of energy for my family. And that really started to bother me. We wanted to have a semi-large family. And I knew that if I was going to be successful at being a father and a husband, I needed to find a way to be home more, and not just home being, in the house all day long, sitting, laying around, but being available and making a life that was a lot more conducive to raising them. So in 2009, when I got laid off from my job, I came home and my wife and I really talked about, why don't we try a different occupation? And at that time, I had started this small garden, not very far away from our house. And my wife and I decided, why don't we give farming a try? Yes, it's going to be a lot of work, but it will really give us the opportunity for our family to come alongside us. And if this is successful, then maybe one day they can really be a part of this family farm business. And that's really why we started the farm, was to give our family this opportunity and chance to do something together. That was really the core reason for starting this farm. So once we started that, there's a lot of challenges, which is growing food, produce. It doesn't really matter where you're at. There's the challenges and hardship is very intense. Then you throw in family and having time and energy for them and making sure that you're not burned out. That balance proved much more difficult than what I had anticipated. And so really for the first few years, there wasn't really a balance. It was essentially working 100 hours a week on the farm. And after about a few years of that lifestyle, I realized, you know what? I'm I'm exhausted farming just as much as I was as my off-farm job. And that's when I started to really make a change on how we farmed. Because at the end of the day, what I really wanted is I wanted to make a good living to provide for my family, but I also wanted to have energy for them for, after farm and just our life activities. And I also wanted to have a place where my family wanted to be a part of the farm and not hate the farm like so many children I know who grew up around, a farm, they end up resenting farm and farm life. So this is where I really started to analyze what we were doing, revisit our mission, and then I wanted to create a different kind of life on our farm that was in more of balance and in tune with my vision and mission. So let's get into it. All right. So here is really a lot of the basic principles that I've tried to apply to my farming life to really avoid my family hating the farm. Number one, the farm needs to make money. So many times early on in our farming business career was the stress of trying to invest in your business as well as taking care of your family. And so at the end of the day, the farm needs to make profit because you need profit to grow your farm, but you also need money to take care of your family. So number one is the farm needs to make money. It needs to make cash flow, and you need to make more than your expenses. That's really, really important. Don't bring the farm problems home. This was a big one. This was a big one for me to learn because essentially as a farm owner, and this really kind of comes into play regardless of what business you have, business and farm for an owner, all you're doing is solving problems. If you want to grow, if you want to have success, you're going to have to solve problems. But if you're not careful, what'll end up happening is you'll bring those farm problems and troubles home. And that, in my opinion, is a recipe for disaster. So learning how to disengage from your farm business, leaving those problems behind, so that way you can come home to your family and give them 100% of what you are supposed to be for your family. So, I have a wife, so it's my job to make sure that when I come home, I'm there to listen to her problems and help her with her day, help her around the house, not vent my problems and frustrations from the day. Really important to disengage from the farm for your family. And the children want, they want you to come home being happy, refreshed, not burnout, not exhausted, and they want to tell you all their things that they did for the day. And if you're really down with the farm's problems, you're not going to be able to give them 100% of what they need from you. Work yourself out of a job. This is a big one. One thing I learned early on is if I wanted my farm to be successful, I had to work myself out of the job. So early on, obviously, I'm the main one doing everything. I'm seeding, I'm planting, I'm pulling weeds, I'm harvesting, I'm selling. What I learned early on is if I am stuck doing all these tasks forever, I'll never be able to grow my business, and that work farm life balance will always be farm heavy. And I'll never have the lightness and the time for my family that I want to if I'm doing everything myself. So work yourself out of the job. And a lot of the times, what works for me is I really try to analyze and ask myself, can someone else do this job? Most of the time, the answer is yes. And more often than not, the answer is usually yes, they can do it. And in fact, they can do it better than you. And the reason for that is because as a business owner, there is more things, more important things for us to do besides in the field doing the actual harvesting, planting, whatever it is, because we have to work on our business. Because the more successful our business is, the more successful our family life will be. Don't be a slave to the farm. In my early years, essentially, I worked for the farm. Like our life revolved around what the farm needed from me. And when I came to the realization that I was a slave to the farm, things really shifted in my mind. Now it's the farm works for me, right? And so if I need a certain amount of money for my family, the farm's going to give it to me. If I want time away from the farm, it's going to give it to me. So now the farm works for me. And that has to be a conscious decision and something that you work toward in order to make that a reality. Because every farm needs a lot of attention. And if you're not careful, you will be a slave. Make time to do special things for your family. I think this is really important, is taking time out of the season, whether it's the busy season on the farm or the slow time, doing special things throughout the week, taking that half day off. One thing I do that's really special is for my kids' birthdays, I take the whole day off work. And that really means a lot to them, right? They know I have the farm. They know I love the farm, but they know that they're important enough that I will take the day off and do something with them. And that really goes a long ways. So instead of them, thinking all daddy does is work, it doesn't matter what is going on in the family, daddy always has to work. They now know that, hey, dad's going to take the day off for any special days. And not only just special days, but, if it's a beautiful spring day and the kids have been asking to go for a hike, I'll really try to take those days and times off. I think it's really important. The more special things you can do with your family away from the farm really prevents burnout from your family. Learning to be in the moment and present with your family. Again, this kind of goes back to learning the art of disengaging from work is really hard, especially when the work we do, we love, right? It's like for us going home and thinking about work, we're solving problems is really not drudgery. Like we enjoy that. But our family needs us to be in the moment. And this is probably a little bit more difficult when your children are working with you in the farm. But what I've really learned, especially if they're on the farm with you or at market day, is anytime that they want to show you something or they need you, they want to ask you a question about, whatever interest, taking that time, disengaging from your activity and giving them a few moments will really go a long ways. And then I really wanted to say this again, but taking time to really listen to your family, like really listen, like no phone, no distractions, no TV, but just one-on-one, really just hearing them talk. Because anybody who has children or spouse knows that, if they love you, they really want to talk to you. But if you're distracted with either the problems in the farm or your phone or someone else, they're just going to feel like they're second rate. And so I think it's really important to learn, again, how to disengage, really tune in and hear them and help them feel like they matter and they're really important to you. The last thing is never force your children to work. I think this is really, really vital. Because if children feel like they're forced to do something for you, then they're going to learn to really resent this. And I learned this early on from just talking to a lot of older children who worked for their parents on the farm. And when I would ask them, why do you hate agriculture or farming so much? And they were like, well, we just felt like, one, we had to work. And two, if we didn't work, then our parents' farm was going to fail. And so they just felt obligated to work. And so I didn't want to repeat that same mistake. So now what I do with the farm is I have worked hard to create opportunity and give them the chance to work. And if they work on the farm, they're going to get paid. They never work on the farm for free. And that has really, really helped a lot. So this is kind of what we're going to kind of get into, some of the basic principles that's really worked well for me. So my daughter, Asha, she is 15 now. She started when, she was 6 months old, just being around. And we've never forced her to work. And so now she runs my markets. She can run our pack shed if needed. She gets paid very well. She has a lot of money saved up. But a lot of that has been because we really tried to apply these principles in real life. So when thinking about how your principles will be and how you're going to kind of navigate this, is you got to start with the end in mind. What's your goals? Set those goals. You also need to know your boundaries. So if you're farming with a spouse, it's really important to set up boundaries. These are the things we're going to do. These are the things that we're not going to allow to distract us. But setting goals and then setting boundaries on how you're going to attain those goals can really, really help giving you good direction and a good framework to walk in so you can have a successful business without making your kids hate the farm. One thing we started to really talk about early on in our farming career was how much time do we need to be with family? What does that look like? We also looked at how much money do we need, right? Everyone's living expenses are different. And so this is not one set thing, but you need to be really clear on how much time and how much money do you need. Because if you can help fulfill those two things, then it really just helps the whole family vibe and atmosphere be upbeat, positive, and they won't hate you or what you do. This is also something that we've worked really hard to do. The farm needs to be a safe place to be, where your children can run around wherever they want, and they're going to be safe. It also needs to be enjoyable. And when you can, it needs to be a really fun place to be. So what we have done on our farm when it comes to safe is, we've just made sure that, hey, if there's any, like say, an example would be fuel, make sure the fuel is in a safe, contained container, and then it's out of reach where they can't get in there and spill it somewhere. Or make sure your oil for your tillers or tractors are up high where they can't reach it. When it comes to enjoyable and fun, what we've done practically to do this is we've tried to find activities that they can do with us, that they can enjoy. And we have an environment to where they can go anywhere they want to. They can pick any veggies they want, and they can eat all the produce that they can possibly eat. And so what that's been, instead of trying to tell them, hey, stay away from this area or stay away from this area, they just have a lot of freedom to run, roam, and go. Even on crops like strawberries, it's like, hey, we're really hoping to have enough for market. But for us, it's more valuable in the long game for them to have as many strawberries as they want than for our children to feel like, well, this is off limits, or, if we eat this, our daddy or mom will be upset. So we've really tried to make an environment that is really children friendly. And again, they've never have gotten or felt in trouble for picking or going in a certain place. They walk on beds. We'll try to encourage them not to, but they're never going to get in trouble for walking in a place where we may not prefer them to walk. Again, we just want them to feel like they're wanted around and that their presence is appreciated and really enjoyed. And so this has really helped our children grow up knowing, hey, the farm can be fun. We can run around and do whatever we want, and it's going to be okay. This is a big one. Start them early. So we really like to start them early. And any time we can have a family event that they can all be a part of is something that we've really, really encouraged. And again, we're okay if they pull up a lettuce plant or a tomato plant. Like it's part of the big picture. So they're never going to get in trouble. We're not going to scold them. We may go, hey, instead of pulling up that lettuce plant, let's pull up these type of plants, chickweed or whatever weed it is.
I'm here with Ari, the founder and CEO of Farmhand, and we're talking ways to market and grow your CSA. Ari, what do you have for us?
So I've got 5 marketing tips for you to grow your CSA this year. And the first is a good website. And it needs to be easy to understand, readable, and show that you're in business, you're professional. Customers can see the products you grow, the story about the farm, and the locations you serve. The second is it's got to be easy to sign up. If someone is interested, you want to take their money and you want them to join your CSA. Less steps is good. Simpler is good. Don't make them join a wait list. Don't make them download a form. Let them sign up in 3 steps or less. The third is you are going to find people offline. You are interacting with people at your farm stand, at the market, in your community, and take advantage of that and hand out a postcard and have that postcard talk about the CSA. Have it have a QR code that takes them to your website. And that little marketing asset can work really effectively at driving people to your website and having people sign up and join your CSA. The fourth is social proof. Let's show people talking about your CSA, whether that's Google Business reviews or testimonials on your website, pictures of the CSA boxes that you've delivered or the market style pickups you've hosted. If you've done that before, definitely showcase it so people know exactly what they're going to get when they sign up for your CSA. And then the last is sometimes we forget that customers may not know what a CSA is. It's still kind of fringe. So let's talk about what it is. Let's break it down. Let's add FAQs and let's make it really simple for people to understand your CSA, whether it's farmer's choice or customizable or market style or buy down. You want to explain exactly how it's going to work and you want to break down those barriers of understanding.
Ari, I think it's interesting that we don't even call our CSA a CSA anymore. We call it a farm membership box because we found that our customers just weren't using that language. And so we kind of shifted away and our signups actually increased. But you're right, is absolutely learning to communicate with the language they are and be clear about what they're getting into.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people don't know that acronym. I mean, we all know the acronym because we're in it, but a lot of people don't know it. Weekly Farm Box is a great way to explain what it is if you have a weekly box that you deliver or people pick up.
Absolutely. Now, by partnering with Farmhand, farmers can save upwards of 6 to 10 hours a week, provide 5-star support, and grow sales 20% plus with improved marketing and time freed up to focus on strategic initiatives. Where can they find out more information about the software?
You can visit farmhand.partners/podcast.
So, and we also like to kind of set goals when we do these things of like, hey, we're just going to do this activity together for 30 minutes. And then if you guys want to, you can help us longer, or maybe you can go play. The other thing that we started to do, which I mentioned earlier, is we really, from the age of, I think, 5, they got paid. So once they could do a project by themselves, we started to pay them. And we've done this, either by the hour, or maybe we start with like a project, or like, when it came to weeding early on, we would tell them, hey, we'll pay you $10 a bed if you can get all the weeds out. And for them, they were like really motivated. And it really just made them excited. Asha here, she's my oldest daughter. She started, I would say, to work consistently on the farm when she was about 7 years old. And so she would start in the greenhouse, then she started the pack shed. She could help plant, but she realized that with money, she could buy things that maybe we wouldn't just buy for her. And every parent is different, but kind of the way we operate is we don't just buy our children every single toy and gadget they want. I mean, if so, we would have to have a warehouse of all the things that they want to buy, right? It can be intense. But for her, she realized, hey, if I work hard and I save up, I can buy, different things that I want to buy. And also, she's realized that, hey, this is my money. So I'm not just going to buy whatever I want because, the money will only go so far. And once she kind of grew up understanding what money could get her, she started to really save. And it also gave her a lot of motivation to work. Like she wants to save up, $20,000 for a truck when she's 16. And she wanted to do this when she turned 13. So she almost has that much money saved up, ready to go, because she kind of set her eyes on a goal and realized, hey, if I work so many days on the farm, in the pack shed, or at markets, or doing this or that, I can make this goal attainable. Like I can really do it. So when she turned 16, she's going to be able to get pretty much a decent used truck as she wants. But we started young and we tried to really apply a lot of these principles at an early age to keep her excited and motivated to work. And like I said earlier, making a farm a place where children will just want to be in, not necessarily just work, but we wanted a place where our children, really enjoyed just being. Maybe they don't want to work that day or whatever, but they really did enjoy running around tunnels, running around fields, looking for worms, looking for snakes, picking crops that may not have been ready to be picked. One thing that we really found is we got into agriculture early because we obviously wanted to, we cared about the earth, we wanted to eat healthier. But getting children to eat their greens is really, really challenging. So one of the reasons why we kind of place this you can eat whatever you pick kind of policy is we found that they were more eager and happy to eat veggies that they picked themselves right in the field than a plate of food that we prepared and sat in front of them at the dinner table. So what we found is that the more they could just go out there and grab a head lettuce or pull up a kale of stalk, even though it was like, inside we were screaming. But as long as we let them kind of do their thing and maybe gently go, hey, try to take off a leaf like this, they would eat a lot of veggies right from the field. And we really, really liked that. It really made us happy. They were happy and excited to do this. They were always hunting for carrots and turnips and tomatoes. Again, this just really fostered early on that they were wanted on the farm and that they weren't a problem. They weren't a nuisance. Again, we just wouldn't let them completely destroy things out of spite. But, if it was an accidental damage, we would never get onto them. We would just gently nudge them in the right direction. This has helped our children from hating the farm, growing up that they were valued, they had a place, they were wanted, and they saw where they fit in to the whole farm business that we had. So again, pay them, share your goals with them, and then celebrate, right? So now my children, Asha is my main market girl, and the other ones kind of take turns. But what I would try to do with them is at the beginning of market day, I would share our sales goal. And then oftentimes what I'll do is if there's like a big goal that like, hey, it's kind of pushing it, but because the more my children talk to customers, the better we seem to do. So what we'll do is sometimes it's like, hey guys, if we can, keep things restocked, keep things looking really nice, and if we hit this number, we'll go do this, right? And so not only are we paying them to be there in the first place, but we're sharing the goals. I have a good plan in place on how I think we could make this happen. Maybe a practical example would be, hey, Asha, let's keep this wall really, really full. And I know it's hard when there's 50 people in line, but when you can pay attention to that wall and keep that wall well stocked. And if we can do this, I think we can hit this goal. And if we hit this goal, we'll go and do this after market day. And we'll hit that goal. do this, which is celebrating the goal. And it really just instills them into their minds of, hey, I'm getting paid to show up. My father is sharing goals and a vision. And so now we have a real good purpose in why we're doing this. And when we hit this goal, we get to celebrate. And so this has really helped my daughter Asha, because she started going to markets with me, off and on. I think she was about 12 years old. And, I wouldn't force her. So after the first 2 years, she would come peak season and the wintertime because it was cold. She didn't want to come. But when she was about 14 years old, she decided that she wanted, this was her market, and she wanted to take this market over one day herself. And so now she can essentially set up my Franklin market by herself. She can manage it. She just needs me to drive her because she is not yet legal to drive this market. But a lot of this has really happened because I've paid her well, I've shared my goals, and we've learned how to celebrate. This goes a long, long ways with children and help them see progress. So this was in 2014. This was at a market in Jackson. And, each year we try to add more variety. We try to do things differently. And then, this was last year. And so, letting them kind of see, wow, we started with, this small little market a few years ago. And because we've kept setting goals and we've kept raising the bar, this is what it looks like now. So in 2023, we went from a very small 10 by 10 booth to now we need 4 10 by 20 booths. In the summertime, it's not even enough room. So, and giving them, kind of sharing them where we started and where we're at now helps them to understand all of these little micro adjustments that we've made over the years. It's really starting to pay off. One thing I wanted to really kind of touch on is I do talk a lot about work-life balance. In my Living Farm course, I do weekly coaching calls with all the members there. And I think one thing is good to understand and know is that there's no such thing that I found as perfect balance and harmony. It's never perfect. That doesn't exist. But what I try to do is seek balance, right? So there's times when maybe the farm needs more energy from you, and you have to understand what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not. So oftentimes in life, doesn't really matter what you're doing, but you can only devote 100% of your energy and effort to so many things without other things suffering. And so it's really just understanding and realizing what needs your attention. And so the more you can really observe and know your children and know your spouse, what do they need, and also understand what does your farm business need, right? So if you're all focused on the farm, your family is going to suffer. And at some point, you're going to have some serious problems. If all you do is hang out and play video games with your kids and you play ball with them, then you're going to have no money to feed and clothe them. So there's just this ongoing activity of just balancing, observing what needs your attention and time, and then applying that time and energy as needed while paying attention to the other thing. And again, it's just every day what I try to do is look at what needs attention from me and then make sure that I'm giving myself to that need so that way it doesn't suffer. And, the more you can be self-aware of, your strengths and weaknesses, this becomes a lot easier to balance. But I wanted to point this out because I don't want to leave you with the impression that I have a perfectly balanced life between family and farm. It doesn't exist. But what does exist is my awareness of what needs my time and energy. All right. So this is what I really wanted to end on is this slide is at the end of the day, what I really want to encourage you guys to do is understand your goals and try to build out a life that you feel like would work for you. Once you understand your goals, your mission, how much time you need, how much money you need, then you can start applying principles that will help you get there. And, these principles have really, really helped me a lot. So again, most of our children, all they know is the farm. And I'm grateful to say at this moment in life, my children do not hate the farm. My two daughters work in the pack shed a day or two a week. They go to the markets with me. They have a really good time whenever they work. They don't feel like they have to. They have enough confidence where if they ask me for a day off, they know I'm going to give it to them. They know I'm going to have time for them if they feel like they need time, but they're also not afraid to put in a good days of work. So these principles it's given us a lot of success in really taking our family with us on the farm. I wanted to say one more thing is part of this balance and this whole system is making sure I have enough help on the farm where, again, if the kids want a day off or if I want to take a day off, the farm can still work. And this really kind of comes under the farm needs to work for you and not you always being in the place where you feel like if you miss one day or you miss a half a day, that the farm's going to fail. The farm needs to be at a place to where it can miss you a couple days or a week or two and to keep going on. Having that in place is going to help make this whole balancing effect much more easier. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. This is, again, my perspective and my experience. And my ultimate goal with this is that maybe there's been a few nuggets that you could have taken out that maybe you can apply to your life, to your farm, to make it more balanced and more easier and more successful for your life and your farm. So thank you guys very much for taking this time.
All right, Ray, thank you so much for sharing that. I got a couple follow-up questions here. So you said, I think you started paying your kids when they were like 5 or 7.
Yeah. So Asha was around 7 because she got sick when she was 6 years old. Actually, 5, she started kind of getting sick, and then Hava was around 5. So Hava and Asha kind of started around the same time.
Gotcha. Okay, and so what was the wage you were starting them off at?
I think we started out with them at that age. It was around $3 to $5 an hour. It kind of depended on what they did and, a lot of variables. But when they're young, like under 5, it's kind of $3 an hour. Because what we find is
they maybe work for 45 minutes.
Maybe 30.
Yeah, we have with this, the problem is the stores, they'll just end up hanging out by the store. And if they get the right customer, they get themselves a tip, which is worth 3 hours. So anyway. All right, so that's really good. Now, another thing, like the practical application, do you set rules for like what hours you work and don't work? Because I know you're really hot down there, so I know sometimes you like to go out in the evening. What's your do you break for like dinner? How does that all work?
Yeah, so in 2016, we made a big shift in our schedule, and that was a 8-hour field day.
Okay.
So what I like to do in the summertime, if I'm out there in the field work, I may start at 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning to beat the heat, but then I'm done by 1 or 2 p.m.
Okay.
And then I'm done. Now, currently, it's really I have essentially an 8 to 5 schedule or so. Like in the wintertime, it's 8 to 5. Maybe it's a little bit earlier, and that's really the schedule for my whole team. Like everyone works, 7 to 3. For the most part, regardless, it's an 8-hour day of field work. I may have some farm errands I have to do in the afternoon, but we've just found that 8-hour day is essentially what we do now. I don't do any work beyond supper time. So I'm always home for supper. That's like a really big rule for us is we're going to have supper together as a family. It's a really important time of the day to connect and talk. We talk about what we're grateful for that day. And then after supper, it's really about, family. But
Okay, so you've switched that from what you used to do.
Yes, that's right. In the early years, it was we take a break in the afternoon and go back in the evenings.
Okay.
But as my children have gotten older, there's activities that they want to do that they only want to do in the evening when it's cooler.
Correct.
I've had to kind of, as my family has grown, not only in number of size, but in interest, I've
Yeah.
had to adjust my systems.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Then let's talk a little bit about also like what kind of role that you're actually doing on the farm now, because obviously you have a team now that can do the weeding, the picking, the packing, that sort of
Yes.
thing. So what is your scope now of what kind of things do you focus on?
So in the farm, my number one job is to solve problems.
Okay.
So I have completely set up my farm where it can run without me. I could literally leave for a month in peak season and the farm's going to run.
Mhm.
Now, it may not solve the kind of problems that may come up, but it's not going to be catastrophic. It may suffer a little bit, but it's not going to fail. So right now, what I'm mainly doing is I like to do daily farm walks. So in the morning, I'm walking the farm. I'm looking for early signs of soil deficiency, maybe diseases, pest outbreaks. I'm looking for, how produce is looking, when we think we can start harvesting something. If a crop is suffering, I may make a call to crop it out, start over. So that usually is about a 30 to 45 minute. And then at that point, I've got my living farm course clients and members that I'm dealing to. But usually what I'm doing now is I'm looking for the future.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to observe future markets. So it's like, okay, let's work on this new product. If there's a new value add product that I want to kind of bring on the table, I'm looking at that, what needs to be done. I'm looking at my sales. I'm working really on my business. I'm looking for the future of it. I'm planning 6 months in advance. And what I found is if I'm in the field for 8 hours a day, I don't have the energy to work on my business. I'm working in it, getting my hands dirty, but my farm really can't grow, not in terms of size, but profitability, ease of infrastructure, all those things is really on me. In the summertime, usually I'm going to do a pretty big infrastructure project. So maybe it's a pack shed infrastructure, maybe it's a new walking cooler, maybe it's a new greenhouse or a high tunnel or a new trial. So I like to have the farm run in a place where I can focus on things that only I can do.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've systematized and made it to the point that everything has processes in place, that the general farm is just on autopilot and you just focus on, building a better farm and working on the business instead of in the business.
I'm really passionate about having a system that someone else can follow. So what I've learned is that there was a task on the farm that only I could do, I would drop that task. Because at the end of the day, the farm needs to work without me. Because if I have to be in it all the time, then I've just found that balance really gets out of hand. I found I'll get tired. This is where you can't take that time off that you need to at the times that, maybe the family needs. But at the end of the day, I love farming and I want to do this like this. I'm playing the long game here. And the long game, if you want to have a place where everyone enjoys working and you don't have 100% turnover from your team, like, 100% of my employees are staying on with me this upcoming next year. 100%. That means I don't have to train anybody this year. That's incredible. And the only way that can happen is because I've tried to make the farm easy, enjoyable. We have a good culture. There are systems. They have the things that they need. Their working environment is comfortable. They're not miserable. They don't feel like it's understaffed where they're having to work pulse 2 or 3 other people's weight. They have their jobs. There's a system that they can follow. They have seating charts. They're not wondering what they're going to do tomorrow. Everyone knows what they do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It repeats itself. It's just on, like, literally, I could leave for a month and the farm and sales would run without me.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll leave it at that, Ray. And again, thank you so much for sharing today.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.